Hi, I'm LC Abby. My trail name for letterboxing is LCAB, LCAB. I'm going to show you my technique for making these fake rocks that I like to plant my letterboxes in. This technique was taught to me by AFD 13. He lives over by Oakland, in the Oakland area of California, and he was willing to show this to me and let me share it with the rest of you. To begin with, I like to get one of these big bowls. This costs you $1 at the Dollar Tree. It's one of the big plastic bowls. You can see where I've used it over and over. The cement I use is Quikrete. It's the mold and sculptable kind. A more detailed description is here. The cement that I use is the quick setting Quikrete. You can purchase that at most home repair shops. I've added what the prices were as of January 1st, 2020. And the kind you want to get, you want to make sure it's the mold and sculpt type. I'm not sure if the others will work for this, but I know that this one will work very well. Another important item that you need is your plastic drop cloth. The ones I recommend are either 1 mil or 2 mil, and that gives them a thicker thickness. The cement will not stick to this plastic. So what we do is we take that plastic and we put it in between the lid and the container, and then put the container on, the lid on, and flip it over, and now we'll be able to put the cement on here and it won't go below the level of the plastic. And it works for all of your containers. The containers I like to use the most are the rectangular and the square ones with the blue lid. You can also purchase these at Dollar Tree. Make sure again that you leave the flap where on an open edge where you can open it. So that it can be popped off and sealed. These are my most popular ones, and you can get these, they're 2 for $1. The case comes as half square and half rectangle. For the small square containers, you get those 4 for $1 in a container in a plastic bag from Dollar Tree. With these, we just simply make them like the normal ones, and we over gap it. We make more on the outside, but you want to make sure that you leave a corner because there is a flap on it, and you want to make sure that that flap has an open corner so people can actually open it. So it can be opened. It's for the smaller boxes, for the smaller stamps. Okay, the lock and lock containers can be purchased 2 for $1, sometimes 3 for $1 from Dollar Tree. The SKU number, the order number is 207324. You can buy it online and they'll ship it to a store near you, and then you just go pick up your cases. To use these, you have to make a mold. And that mold is also a Dollar Tree item. And when you make the mold, you want to make sure it'll fit over your container. And as you flip it over, it'll fit up over the fins, the locking fins. And then your cement will go right over the top of that. The next choice is to use the rectangular containers. And those are purchased 2 for $1. Sometimes you can even find them 3 for $1 at Dollar Tree. And you also have to buy the container with a mold. In the bottom, it's a divided container. And you end up making a mold out of it by putting your container inside. And it'll actually fit in. You have to cut grooves into the divider also. And you can see there's grooves in my divider that'll fit to my box perfectly, where my box will fit like that. So I have that, and these are the ones we call the turtles. When we mold these, we put the cement over them, we leave it to dry, and then afterwards we can just remove the whole rock from it and have the rock attached here and reuse our mold. All I do is I have water. This is just simply water, a container with water. And this is also a bucket of water for me to wash my hands after I've been dealing with the cement. Then I can wash my hands off. So I try to keep it handy right away. To begin with, you take 4 cups. This is a 1 cup measuring. This one is a 3/4 cup measuring. So I am going to take 4 cups of cement. They don't have to be exact, they can be heaping, because none of this is an exact mixture. You won't know till you're done. There's 3. And 4. So 4 cups of my cement. Again, this is a 3/4 cup. I'm going to do 2 of these. So that's 1.5 cups of water. And then I'm simply going to mix my cement in with it. And to me it feels like I'm making bread or cookie dough. You can see how the texture is changing from the watery. Okay, this one turned out really good for when I make the little ones, because I like to make them sloppier. So this mixture is still kind of sloppy. So when I make my smaller rocks, if I want it to have a lava look to it, so it's sloppier like this on the rocks, then I'll keep this. But for now, I want to make it thicker. So I'm going to add just a little bit of cement. It's like adding flour to a cooking recipe. And mix that in. There. Now I'll take this bowl to the other end of the table and make my rocks with my cement. Okay, at this end I have a container. Inside of this container is actually just sand. It's just regular sand that I picked up on the beach, and then I covered it in plastic, and this will separate my containers. I'm going to start with my rectangular container, and this container I have the plastic in between the lid and the container, and I'm going to take it and with lid down and squiggle it around in here so that the level of the sand is up above the groove of the lid. Then I simply take my cement, a glob of it, stick it in the center, and I still want it to be bulky on the top, so I just work it down to the sides. When I get down to where I like it, I'm going to take the plastic that's around the container and I'm going to lift that up. And as I lift that up, you'll see that I'm actually taking the cement up off the lid this way. And you want to keep it as deformed as possible so it looks like the other rocks, but I try to get rid of the plastic grooves on the side here. And so you just pretty much fold it up like that. And that's my first rock. Okay, the container that I'm going to do this time is going to be what we call our turtle container. This is the divided plastic that we made into a mold, and we put plastic over it and put my oblong rectangular container in it. This I'm just going to sit in my bucket of sand just for stabilization. Take a handful of my cement, put it on the bottom, and just work it around the sides. Now this one I'm going to let it extend a little further past the container and then I can still use my plastic to shape around the edges. You don't want any sharp edges left because those will just simply break off. So try to round it on the bottom as much as you can. And then do weird stuff to it so it doesn't look real perfect. And then I'll just set this aside and let it dry. In this demonstration, I'm going to use the small square container. Again, I jiggle it down in the sand so that my sand is up to the edge of my lid. Then I take, and this one's nice because it doesn't take a lot of cement. Then I take my little glob of cement, put it on top, and work it down. Bring it back up and just make sure you're pushing from the bottom to make sure that your plastic is up from it. And that is how you make the little ones. Okay, for the lock and lock container, we don't put the plastic over it, the little piece of plastic that we put around the others. We don't do it on this one because we wouldn't be able to get it off. Okay, now I'm going to take my mold and I'm going to put it over my lock and lock box. I only use the little ones because a rock made out of the ones with the purple lid would be pretty big. So if I do my container, I'm just going to sit it in here for balance. Take my cement, put it in the center, a little more, and work it down the sides. Now, when you get down to the bottom of the base, you're going to want to push down hard because you're actually pushing that mold down closer to the container. And then try not to get it in the grooves of the mold here. So you keep it within that. And then again, round it, but also try to have your fingers down under it so that the cement is more rounded at the bottom and not flat, because if it's flat and thin, it'll just break off when we remove the mold. And again, you don't want it to be perfect. And then we'll just set it aside and let it dry. After it dries, we can simply pull the mold out around the edges, and it'll separate, and then we'll have just our rock with the mold. Now I'll show you how to do the square one. Pretty much it's just like the rectangular one. You want to know where your flap is. I always try to put it in the upper left corner. I put it down here in my sand and I jiggle it. And you can see that when I did that, there's actually a groove in the sand where this sits. And this helps me keep from putting the cement down past the plastic that I have. So then I take my cement, I set it in the center and work it down the edges. Until I get it all the way down. Then I use my plastic and come up on my plastic. This guarantees that it's not pushing the lid off or down into the lid. You'll also notice that it's wider, and by making it thicker on the edges here, when you plant it in the field, the water won't roll into the lid. It'll be able to fall off more. And that gives me this container. So I've made containers, and in between making a container, the remainder has gotten harder. So I am going to add just a little bit of water, just a few drops. in there. And that moistens up my cement again so I can still reform it over a container. Now there is a way to make the rocks more red. There's some stuff you can buy, it's like grout, and this is a reddish one. So if I take a little bit of this grout and I mix it in with my cement, I can give it more of a reddish tint. You won't notice it so much until it dries, and after it dries, it'll dry with a reddish tint to it. See, and what I have here is like 1 cup. And I'll use this to mold one of my smaller rocks. When I'm all done, I just wash my hands in this cement bucket of water and take my gloves off. And I can use them again. Okay, from here, the next day, wait 24 hours for your things to dry. That way we know they're totally dry inside, because cement has to cure. And depending on how much water and your temperature around the environment is how much it'll dry. The next day, take the lid off, take the plastics off, put the lid back on, or actually if you have the lid off, paint your lids a solid color, and then use for the tops though, use the stone paint. And here's a more detailed choices of your cement, of your stone paint and how they work. The spray paint that I use for the finished product is mostly the stone type. You can buy it at most of the stores. You can even order it online and have it delivered to your home. The darker one, the dark brown one, is the one that I liked using down in North Carolina. And I was able to put the rocks right up against the tree and have them totally hidden because the tree bark was the same color. These tan ones I can use just about anywheres, and a lot of times it depends if you have the brown sand. This is really good in the brown sand areas, and also there's the gray one for the gray sand areas. Up in Massachusetts and Maine, I started using a lot of the black spray paint, and I leave them in a container in the back of my truck, and they rub against each other, which gives it more of a graying look, which looks like the rocks that you see in the cemeteries and for around fences, the rock fences with the stuff growing on it. And so it kind of meshes right in with the area.